Hello and welcome back to Up the Villa podcast. If you're new to our channel, subscribe, drop this video a like, and we want to hear your thoughts on Aston Villa 1, Wolves 1 in the comment section down below. I want to have all of your thoughts. Goes off like a fan forum every single episode, and it's absolutely fantastic. Let's have a like target then of 450. If you can all drop a like, if you enjoy this video, it just helps push it further onto YouTube and helps the channel basically. So the more of you that like it, you're just basically helping us out really and just trying to attract more Villa fans to the channel. So 1-1, coming away from it now, I've came away thinking it's a good point. It's a point where I think the point was the fair result in the end, and having played not so great in the first half, if you don't play great and you don't lose, then that's a decent trait to have. I know I've spoke about this a few times, that whenever we've played the big sides at Villa Park, we've played them off the park and we end up losing, and it's sickening, isn't it, that you play well and you end up losing. So the fact that we didn't play so well and we drew shows signs of a bit of fight, and it shows signs that we're willing to get back into the game as well. So I think it is a positive in the end that we didn't lose the game. I think in years gone by, we would have lost that game. We wouldn't have been able to break them down. We'd have probably conceded a second. So in that side of things, pretty positive, to be fair. So I think that's one good thing that came out of it, really. But the first half for me, the first half, the first 10, 12 minutes when we conceded, it just wasn't great from what I was watching. They were really imposing themselves, Wolves, on the game. They were really pressing us well. They weren't allowing us to have any time on the ball. So I think you've got to say fair play to Wolves. They started the game really well. They had a really good game plan. They wanted to get at us, which was good on their side of things. So, but for Villa, it was just the shape just wasn't there for me. Defensively, we just weren't switched on enough. I think against Spurs, I remember saying it was like a well-oiled machine. Everybody knew their roles. Everything was functioning well. But for that first half, it looked like, and maybe the John McGinn part had been took out of the team. So he'd been took out of the team, and it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working in unison. And I'll show you in a second what I mean by this. Is that it was just lacking something, wasn't it? It was lacking protection. It was lacking sort of like organisation, because at times it just looked like we was all over the place. You know, the ball would drop in the middle of the park and it'd just fall to a Wolves player, and they'd be able to move the ball around. We wouldn't be able to get the ball off them. They were able to create chances. They were able to create openings. They were creating overloads on each side. Like Luka Dean was isolated. Ashley Young was isolated. They were creating 2v1s all the time. They were really stretching us. They were able to get on the ball and dictate play in the central of the park. So for me, that's all coming from stuff that we weren't doing correctly, and we weren't helping each other out. We weren't getting on the ball. We weren't using the ball quick enough. When the ball would go to the left, it'd come back to the right. It'd go back to the right, come back to the left. We weren't seeing anything up top. There was no movement up top. So it was a culmination of that first half of a lot of things not working. And when something that's well drilled and something that when you're used to watching, it works really well. And when you're watching it from the stands and it's not working, it looks really messy. And I think that's what it was. And it started off the game, Wolves had a couple of corners, a couple of free kicks, and then they managed to score from there. I think it was a corner that they scored from, and we just allowed Podence to come in the box. And I think that came from us not really switching on, not really marking Podence, and no one was on Podence. He was able to jink in the box and get his shot away, and I think that was really frustrating. So we was 1-0 down, and in them type of games, you don't want to be 1-0 down because the crowd get up for it, don't they? And it's hard work then when the team's on top at Villa Park and you're now losing. It's really hard work. So It was really difficult for Villa in that first half. So I'm going to show you the average positions for Aston Villa during this game. Now, you know I'm big on the average positions because I think over the course of a game, the average positions can sort of tell a bit of a tale of whether your shape's good or not. And that's why I like it. And predominantly, how I like to see it is if the shape looks like the formation that we're playing, then generally you're getting a bit of joy. Yeah, there could be one that's a bit sporadic and a bit out of position, but generally there's a bit of a gist. Now, where I felt like Villa went wrong in this game, and the problem where we were going wrong was we were having our fullbacks isolated quite a lot. Now, if you look at where Luca Dean is positioned, pretty high. This massive gap here, there was no, in the first half especially, there was no protection for Luca Dean. So what we needed to really see was an Emery in that sort of role, really helping Luca Dean out. But I didn't see much of Buendia in that first half. I didn't see him protecting enough. I didn't see him offering for the ball enough. And I just felt like Buendia's position and Matty Cash's position in that first half posed us so many problems because when they were getting the ball out wide, we weren't strong enough to win the ball back. You know, I mean, if you look at where Matty Cash is here, there was so many times in the first half when Matty Cash was like showing Ashley Young where the man was. And I was kind of like, but that's your man. Like, you're drifting over. You've got to win that ball off that player. Ashley Young's occupied by somebody else. That's not for Ashley Young to be doing. So I just felt like Cash and Buendia in that first half didn't really help enough with the ball and without the ball. And I think that's where a few problems, first half especially, lied for Aston Villa. I think after that, really, I think we grew into the game in the first half, didn't we? And we ended the first half well. So I think, other than that, I'm not sure why Ollie Watkins' average positions here. I don't know whether that's to do with the second half or him dropping a bit deeper in the first half. But I just think, really, for me, in that when we were looking at a little bit poor, I just wanted to see Luca Dean getting on the ball more and going forward or picking a forward pass or whipping a ball into the box. And it was just really frustrating that every time it went to Luca Dean, it would come backwards. And we'd done well to get an opening on the left-hand side, but it was just so slow. It had just come back. And, yeah, I just felt like the fullbacks were a problem against Wolves, Young and Digne. I felt like Buendia and Cash weren't working hard enough. And I think we really missed John McGinn. So I think if we're going to stick with this Cash Young thing in the future, I think it needs a lot of work because I think Cash looked a bit lost for me. I think doing a job against Spurs, coming on and having to, do a specific role, yeah. But when you're in there and you're having to win the ball, break up play, start attacks, I didn't see enough. So that is what I would say about the first half. And then we got positives. We got positives in the second half, Villa fans, because what any elite manager does is if you've just watched what we've watched in that first half, and I mean, I said in the fan camp, Unai Emery was sat down for long periods of it, and I just think he was just probably flabbergasted at what he was watching, like I was, because I couldn't believe it. I think they had a right rollicking at half time, and I think he got into him. I think he got into him at half time, and he made that substitution, didn't he? He brought on Coutinho for Ashley Young, and then put Cash at right back, and that was my predicted lineup, wasn't it? My predicted lineup had Coutinho where McGinn was, and I felt like we were better, weren't we? We were more switched on when Dia was better in the second half. You got Coutinho picking up the ball, trying to start things. I think Coutinho had a decent half. He was looking to try and get on the ball. There was nice touches. He was heavily involved, Coutinho. So I think that was pleasing. It was better when Cash went back to right back. I felt we had more pace, more energy. He was able to get forward defensively. He was good. He did well against defending at times against Aït-Nouri, apart from that one time that he sort of fell over. So I felt like that was pleasing. And I just felt like we did what we should be doing. Wolves were happy to contain Villa in the middle of the park. They were winning everything in the middle of the park. The way that you were going to beat Wolves was to get out wide. And Bailey had a good game. Bailey was doing what I want Bailey to be doing. He was getting 1v1. He had a 2v1, but he was brave. He was getting on the ball and he was trying to make things happen. He was trying to beat his defender. He was getting balls in. And I thought Bailey looked better as well. So when we tried to go out wide, which is where we were going to hurt Wolves, that is where we got our joy in the second half. Everything came from out wide. We had Luca Dean did all right at the start of the second half. He pinged one in and Bailey just missed his header. And then we made a triple substitution, which again kept momentum on Villa's side. So all second half, we did well because Emery made the substitution at half-time. He then made 3 substitutions, which kept momentum with Villa. I thought Augustinson was great when he came on because Augustinson stayed wide and he was direct. He wanted to get stuff into the box. He was involved. He had that shot that was cleared off the line that was a fantastic header. Then Donker, when he came on, added a presence, a stature. We were winning the ball. We were churning the ball. So all through the second half, we were pretty dominant. And it was good to see. And then the ball over the top from Mings to Danny Ings, a brilliant finish and great finish from Ings. And Ings in the Premier League under Emery scores goals. And Ings, when he plays in the Premier League for Villa, he's scoring goals. So we've got to keep him, haven't we? We've got to keep Danny Ings. We've got to keep him. So second half, to get back in it, to end that game 1-1, I think they were the better first half. We were the better second half. A point was the fair result. And then Bailey at the end, there's nothing more to say is that he has to... I don't think it was as easy as what we think that chance was. Because he's took it away. He's not near the keeper. He's gone away from the keeper. So the angle's gone. Well, the angle's not gone, but the angle's harder because he's took his touch out wide. But he has got to score. He's got to win the game there. So I think the fact that his reaction was, he was crying and his head was on the floor and, that, like what Emery was saying, that shows to me that he cares, and that shows to me that there's a passion there and an emotion. So he will know that he needs to do better. He will know that he needed to score. So I think there's nothing more to say, but I think he had a good game in the end, Bailey. So what we're going to do, let's share the screen now. And I'm going to show you guys just some of the stats of the game, some of the things that I noticed. And, so the momentum bar of the game, as you can see, Villa are green, Wolves are blue. So they started the game really well. And then it was just all Villa towards the end of towards the second half. We had an XG of 1.61. We had 56% possession, 13 shots, 4 on target, 6 block shots, 7 corners. We had 2 big chances. 1 big chance was missed. Shots outside the box, 8, inside the box, 5. So that's good. Passes, 488, 88% passing accuracy, 61% long balls, 15% crosses. That needs to improve. 33% dribbles. We lost the ball 132 times, which is quite a lot. I guess the majority of that was in the first half. We total duels, one was 38. As you can see, the Villa average positions, like I showed you. I showed you where I felt like we were going wrong, the problems that we had. Wolves average positions, as you can see again, like what we said in the predicted lineup, very, very narrow, compact in the middle of the pitch. The areas where you would hurt them are out wide through here. So that just highlights where we should have been hurting them. So tailor the game, 25%, 37%, 38%. Those are the areas which the ball was in play. A Villa attack predominantly down the right-hand side, Wolves down the right and the left. This was Villa's shot map. So we've got, quite a few shots away. I'd just like to see us a little bit more. This graphic shows that Villa attacked predominantly down the right-hand side, and then this graphic shows that majority of Villa's attacks came down the right-hand side. So it'd have been nice if we'd have had a little bit more around this area as well. So I think that's the tail of the game. Those are some of the key points that I really wanted to make out. But I think we are obviously a work in progress. But it was nice to see the character to fight back. Nice to see that when things weren't going our way, we made changes. We didn't sit on our hands. So we made key substitutions. And I think the players that came on, Dendoncker, Augustinson, Coutinho, Danny Ings, they all improved us in that second half. They all were well worthy of staking a claim in this team, and I think some of them should be not worried, but there's a couple of players that I'm watching, and I'm just thinking I'm not too sure, Villa fans. I'm not too sure. I think when I say I'm not too sure and stuff like that, it's that I'm looking at, and as you know, I've been looking at Buendia. And I just think with Buendia, there's too many times that in a half, he just goes missing for me. Like, he just doesn't show enough. He just doesn't get on the ball enough. And I've said the positions that I think we're going to strengthen in this window are up top, the two behind the strikers, and fullbacks. Because Buendia goes missing too much for me. I don't see enough. I just don't. And I want him to do so well, but it just doesn't. It just disappears. Like when the games get difficult and we have to dig in, I just don't see him strong enough, and I just don't see him creativity doing enough. I think he gives the ball away too many times, and I need to see more. I think second half he was better, but again it was still somewhat lacking for me. I think Luca Dean, these links with Alex Moreno, I think Luca Dean needs to improve quite a lot. I think we need to see more going forward. I think defensively at times we need to see him a bit more switched on. But then I think if I'm saying two players for me that aren't playing great in Luke Dean and Buendia, they're both on the same side. So that's a bit of a problem for me at the minute, is that the two players that I'm not sure about both play on the same side of the pitch. So I think that's a bit of an area where it's a bit of a worry. I think Cash was better when he went back at right back. Watkins had a bit of a poor game, didn't he? I don't think he had much creativity. Like, I don't think he had much to feed off. But again, I think sometimes when we were under pressure, that's where you want sort of someone to come for the ball, hold the ball, bring players into play, ease a bit of pressure. I I don't think he does that enough. So those are the areas where I'm a little bit like, I got my question marks. So, yeah. So I think that's enough for me now. So I think those are my little question marks. Those are the areas that I think I'd improve a little bit. I think personnel-wise, transfer-wise, I think Emery will be looking at those areas. I think he'll really be looking at those areas for Aston Villa. And Bailey, I think he's doing enough at the minute. I think he's getting in the right areas. He was better second half. Defensively, at times he could help out a bit more, but I just think Brendan needs to massively improve. But Villa fans, let me know what you think. Like, are you seeing it as I'm seeing it? Are you seeing it as exactly what I see, or are you seeing it a little bit differently? So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Get involved in the comment section down below. Cheers for watching, and up the Villa. We will be going live today at 12 o'clock for our live player ratings, and we'll be having a general chat about Villa as well. So we'll be live at 12, up the Villa.